Whether it's weight loss, quitting smoking, or some other New Year's resolution, millions of Canadians are hoping to do things differently in 2013. But while so many resolutions go by the wayside by February, there are some you should really keep for both your sake and your family's. Jane Blaufus is the author of With the Stroke of a Pen, Claim Your Life. And Jane joins us today. Thanks for coming in.
Pleasure to be here.
This kind of advice, I think, really hits home when it comes from someone who has firsthand experience in giving that advice. Tell us your story and how you came up with the advice in this book.
Well, I had been in the financial services industry for 16 years when my 39-year-old husband walked out the door in the morning and a police officer walked up my driveway that afternoon to tell me he'd been killed in an accident. So I went from being a happily married wife, mother, and professional woman to suddenly a widow with a 12-and-a-half-year-old daughter. And I always thought that my experience and expertise would keep me safe and I'd be able to handle it better than somebody else would. Wrong. So I was so blindsided by so many things that came my way. I thought, if I have all of this experience, what does the average person go through? So I decided to write a book about it.
So Jane, tell us a little bit about some of the things you think that Canadians and just generally people need to be thinking more about today while they've got their family and everyone's living the way they are. I mean, what are some of the things they need to focus on?
Well, first of all, everybody needs to have courageous conversations first with themselves, then with their family. They need to be talking about what their final wishes are, what do they want to have happen if anything happens to them. It's not a conversation people sit around the dinner table and have, but they need to have it. They need to sit with their families, talk to their spouses, their parents, talk to their grown children and whatever. And then the other thing is, what about life insurance? Do you have enough life insurance? If you have life insurance, is it sufficient for the situation today? You can't buy a life insurance policy, stick it in a drawer, you know, and look at it 5 or 10 years later. You have to make sure that it covers what you need today. One of the other things that I'm very big on is you need to have a proper will drafted by a lawyer. I realize there's a lot of home will kits out there. I'm not a lawyer, but I know from my own personal experience having a properly drafted will really helped my situation. If you have underage children, have you thought about a legal guardian? If you have children, you know, who's going to look after them if something happens to you and your spouse? More particularly, though, is have you talked to the person that you've asked that you want to be the guardian? You have to ask them to accept the responsibility. And also, you need to talk to them and say, if something happens, will you respect our wishes for education, for religious beliefs, all of the above? And it's not an easy conversation to have. I know from experience about somebody who said, yeah, no problem. If anything happens, I'll take your kids. The woman died, and then somebody who was supposed to take the children was trying to find somebody else to take them because didn't want the responsibility. And the other thing is, New Year, meet with your financial advisor and meet with your accountant to make sure that you're properly set up.
And now I realize this probably has to be really age appropriate, but it sounds like a lot of this discussion should actually involve your children.
Yes.
I mean, depending on how old they are, but so much of the planning would involve them, whether it's succession or what to do if something happens to you.
Exactly. And also the other thing we're seeing today is blended families. I'm happily remarried, but I also have 2 stepdaughters now as a result of my own child. So there's the wishes on both sides of the place. And I had to have a talk with my daughter about what I wanted to have happen because I pre-planned my own internment when my first husband died, and I'm remarried. I didn't think about that when I made all the arrangements.
I think a lot of people don't realize the impact estate planning can have, and that's really a lot of this is estate planning, thinking through wills and insurance. But the transfer of wealth from estate, if you don't have a will, and we waste so much time thinking about investment returns and building a nest egg, not enough time about this. I mean, I agree with this entirely, and I think that we need more and more Canadians. How are you seeing, are people reacting to your message?
Yes, they are. People, as I said before, don't want to talk about it, but when you get them talking about it, they can't stop talking about it. I just had a conversation in the makeup room with the 2 people on your team. We got into a whole discussion around this. People want to talk about it, but they're afraid to, and they don't know where to start. So the book is all about helping people to have courageous conversations and to ask the right questions. 2 years of research went into all of the questions that are in that book, in addition to my personal experience.
Well, it's all very helpful, as we can tell from just our short conversation. Thank you so much, Jane, for sharing it with us.
Thank you for having me.
Still to come, it didn't appear on any top 10 lists, win any awards, or garner any serious praise. So why is Playback suddenly one of the most talked about movies? You'll find out after the break.